Mr. David Wilcock. David, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing really good, Jimmy. How are you?
Have you recovered?
Oh, not really. You just gotta... I'm one of those people who can sleep anytime, day or night, so I'm just knocking out sleep cycles whenever I feel like it at this point.
What you're saying is you're sleeping during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a long 4 days for everybody, and the speakers and yourself and like where I had stuff going on for 3 days, you had stuff going on for 4. It's a long day for everybody. The conference definitely gets every penny out of us, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, when you do an event like this, they book you as much as they can because they're, getting one of their headliners, and so...
That's it, man. That's it.
I was 8 o'clock every night, 4 nights in a row.
Yep. I had 3
Plus I had the George Norrie panel on Saturday, which I didn't even know until I was going to something else, and they're like, oh, you're supposed to be down there.
Oh, I got to tell that story. Yeah, I will tell that story in a minute, but I wanted to start off with Happy Valentine's Day, my friend.
Well, thank you.
And so, Valentine's Day is special, man, and I Facebooked out this morning a whole slew of, I love my wife, we're spending the day together today, to prep for the show tonight to make sure it's special, and then after the show is a special dinner, and it posted a couple of pictures, but we always have that, and people they see that and then they think about their significant other, and it's like warm vibes all around.
Well, this is the first Valentine's Day in which I am happily married, Jimmy.
You're happily married, so you spent the day with your wife and the woman that you love.
Yes.
That's it. Awesome. And her name is Beth, everybody. So, are you guys, after you hang up with me, are you going out to dinner?
Actually, we did that yesterday when we got back from the conference. Today, we're just kind of taking it easy and not having a big drama or anything.
Right. Well, okay. You did get her a card, though.
She got me a card, and I kind of forgot it was Valentine's Day.
Man, as a husband, David, let me give you a tip. The first year, you can't forget. The second year is when all of that stuff kicks in. Happy Valentine's Day to you and Beth, man. Happy Valentine's.
I think a part of it was just the raw distraction. Like it's a very, very long weekend, and
I know.
It's tough to keep these things straight.
I know. And she looked great there, and so did you. Now, let's change gears for a second. For you, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, but most people know what I'm about to say or understand it, which is this year you were dapper 4 nights in a row. You were dapper. Normally, David is wearing Birkenstocks, a pair of shorts, a shirt from the bottom of the hamper, wrinkled bachelor wear. But this year, you were dapper, man. Wore a tuxedo one night. I'm looking at you here at the Ancient Aliens panel. You had a very nice suit on. George Norrie and you just had a suit on every single day, and you looked really, really good.
Well, thank you. It definitely helps having a positive, supportive partner, and she helps dress me. So I guess that's...
Hey, admit it. Rita lays out my clothes for me. I'm just telling you right now. If I make an attempt to pick out my own stuff and lay it out, something's getting changed. She's going to pull something out. Not that shirt, you doofus. You're wearing this shirt. Oh, yeah, okay. So that's just the way it is, man. Just go with it.
Yeah, the shirt I wore on your panel, she had specifically bought for me that day, saying, you need to be in this shirt. So that's how it went down.
Well, you look good, and now the panels were all great. Now for you, okay, let me tell the one story about the George Norrie panel. So George is stressing out. He's backstage. He's got 9 panelists. 8 have shown up. There's no David. George is coming back and going, okay, church man, call Wilcock. I know you got his number. So I'm calling David on my cell phone. It's not going through at the hotel. I'm texting him. It's not going through. Or if it's going through, David's not responding. So then George goes, okay, we're going to start the panel without him, and he'll show up. I said, he's on his way. I acted like you responded back. He goes, he's on his way, George. Okay. So boom, starts the panel, da-da-da. I'm done. I go up on stage. I'm walking out the door. I'm leaving. David, what happens next?
It was very bizarre. At the exact moment that I was coming up to the door, to open the door to go into the room, the door opened, and it was you opening the door.
Leaving.
Like perfectly timed synchronicity down to the split second. And then you just looked at me like, where are you? Grabbed my arm, yanked me into the room.
I grabbed David's arm, and I go, come on, man, let's go. And I pulled you in. That was pretty funny, but it was really like, let's not delay this. So I grabbed David by the arm, and I pulled him into the, it's sold out. There's 1,000 people in there. And I walked past Tommy Danheiser, who was talking on the microphone. He was sitting at a table. I go, Tommy, Mike. Grabbed the mic from him and turned around. And what did I say to the audience?
I found him.
Ladies and gentlemen, I found David Wilcock and brought him up on the stage. But that was hilarious, man. And we did that with you. And actually, we had a couple of things with Corey, too. But we did that with you, it seemed like all weekend. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I had gone by what people had told me in letters and what was on the schedule on the web. And I had a Gaia interview with Jaime Maussan that was scheduled right then. And I got down to the interview on time, and then they tell me about this panel, and I was like, well, nobody told me I was on the panel, So there had been no communication. And so it's not like it for me to ever just not show up for something. It literally was a situation where I just had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, and then there's the other part, too, as well. There's 15,000 people that attend this conference. So it's very difficult to negotiate the hallways and get up and down and elevators and make your way through. And people are pulling at you left and right. You can never make a clean shot through a room.
Oh, yeah. It is the biggest event all year.
Yeah, it's huge.
And there are times where you have to have selective amnesia because, all I hear everywhere I go is the word David. And if I'm trying to get somewhere at the last minute, you can't stop.
No, you can't. You can't stop.
Going.
Well, now, looking back on the weekend, what makes Conscious Life Expo so special for you? This is a main event for you, that and Contact in the Desert, of course. But what makes Conscious Life Expo so special?
Well, this is the 13th year that I've done it, and it's very interesting because I not only began my time in Hollywood being here. I met a film producer the very first year I did it in 2005, and we had a meeting the following morning after he met me, and he had said, if we took what you just did and make it into a movie, it would be totally amazing. And by the following morning, I was ready to move to Los Angeles from Kentucky, where I was at the time. And he told me that would be necessary, and that's how I ended up out here. And the movie is still being worked on, but we are hopefully getting to another rewrite soon that might be able to actually get it to be sold. It's been a very difficult, complex journey with the film as we've watched the whole film industry really collapse during that time.
Right.
Much, much, much harder to go into development now than it used to be.
What at the beginning of the Ancient Aliens panel, we did a special tribute to Jim Mars and John Anthony West, and to lose these two guys so close together, really hit our community hard. But what went through your mind as we went through that special tribute, thinking about John Anthony West and Jim Mars?
it was a very deep sadness, and we really don't have younger people who are becoming the kind of iconic personalities in our field that they have been. So it's a very strange feeling, because it's not like there's not this rush of obvious new talent to fill the niches that they provided. You know, they're both such legendary people who've made legendary contributions and really changed the narrative for us. So I hope that as time progresses, that more folks will really start to make themselves clear as the luminaries that will keep this torch going.
You know, that's last night we did a special tribute to Jaws, and we had Robert Schock on the show and Chance Gardner, who is the director of Magical Egypt, both series 1 and 2. And they both of them independently brought up a very interesting point, that John Anthony West at that time, well, and continued to, but at that time, there was nobody ruffling those feathers like they were when it came to Giza. And, I mean, there was alternative research going on. That's certainly not the point that I'm making. But the way that he did it and went about it, and getting Schock involved, with the Sphinx and the dating, that really there was nobody else doing it. And what's going to happen now? And you just brought up the same exact point. Well,
it is an interesting subject, because that data came into fruition and really was at its peak in the late 1990s, right as I was having my awakening experiences and was reading, I read 300 books beginning in 1993 on the subject. And then I got out of college in 95, and it was right around then that the whole Robert Bauval, Graham Hancock, John Anthony West, Robert Schock, all that stuff was really kind of becoming known to everyone. And I was so thrilled about it, and I'm very grateful that I had time to consider John Anthony West my friend and interview him on panels and so forth, because
right.
He was really one of the key elements in that whole thing.
When okay, you know what? I don't want to stay on the subject. I want to move on, because we could talk about this for the next 3 hours, and some of the things that you said that night on the Ancient Aliens panel about the new chamber and the stuff that was going on in the early 1900s, 1930s, and the research that was going on out there on the plateau showed me at that moment, and the audience and the live stream, your knowledge, man, and your research into Giza is not fluff. You've spent a lot of time on it, and you stopped me. You stopped me in my tracks, and that doesn't happen often. I like to walk around thinking I'm the Egypt dude, and and that was really, really cool and very impressive.
I did read every book that was available in the library on these subjects.
Well, and apparently memorized them.
Yeah. If I'm interested in something, I have a pretty darn good memory.
Yeah, that was impressive, David. That was impressive. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to let's see. Let's go to when I had you and Corey, and then you were before it was Corey. Okay, so on Sunday I introduced you and Corey, and again sold out. And what I did notice, and I walked around and I introduced you all weekend long, so I got to see the rooms and how things were. But I also introduced so many other speakers. Every room, David, was sold out. Every room was standing room only. It didn't matter if it was one of the smaller rooms or if it was any of the big rooms. Did you get the same feeling there? I mean, the ginormity of the crowds this year was packed.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, and this is not bragging, but it is a fact that essentially every event like this that I do, they end up having more sales on my events than any of the other events they have. I get these standing room only crowded scenes, and some of the organizers complained about the fact that they don't really get that with anybody else. So I'm glad to hear this year that it was happening, that everybody was showing up for these various events.
And why do you think that is? Because I noticed it. It was the lines and the enthusiasm. What makes this year different?
Well, I think this is the year of disclosure, and it's really happening. We're looking at the cabal coming unraveled before our eyes. Mass arrests, 13,000 indictments taking place, 13,000 slots being cleared up in Guantanamo for prisoners. We can prove that now. So the connections are very obvious. There's something magical going on, magical for most of us, and it involves the takedown of the deep state. No question.
And the other part for me is that the Conscious Life Expo, conspiracies, UFOs, and lost history and ancient history, the things that you and I talk about most and what I deal with on the show is one thing. The Conscious Life Expo is also about awakening and enlightenment. And that part of the crowd may not know about anything that you talk about. But even that part of the conference elevated this year, too, as well. So is that signaling people that more people are interested in consciousness and what is going on with our planet than ever before? They had told me, I was just talking to them today about ticket sales, that 30%, I think it was 30%, it was 40% on another statistic, were first-timers at the Conscious Life Expo.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And the same thing with the vendors. It was the same number with the vendors. They had the same amount, the same vendors that were there last year, and but 40% of the vendors this year. That's how many more vendors they had. They had to get more booth space.
There were a great number of speakers who I had never seen before also.
Yeah, same for me.
It was interesting to see all these people showing up and having something to say.
Yeah. Well, Teresa Inaris was there. Jason Quitt was there. And both of their presentations packed.
Wow.
Yeah. And William Henry, who has been there every year. But, I'll walk into William Henry's thing to go and introduce him. Packed. Just packed.
That's great.
Yeah, so impressive. Now, okay, so this is what I wanted to ask you. So when I introduced you, which I did that last year too as well. Do you find that your material, the stuff that you're speaking about, that this year was it a completely fresh, clean plate? As opposed to, sometimes you're speaking about stuff that you were covering before, maybe a little bit, but you're speaking 4 times over the weekend. You're not doing a repeat performance every night, and you're certainly not regurgitating anything, right? You've got all fresh material.
I have to. By the time it got to the Monday night event, which has a smaller crowd, the majority of the people at that event are people who are coming to every event that I do.
Right.
And they need to see something they haven't already seen, and with the fact that I have 2 different shows every week on Gaia, half an hour a week, it does get harder and harder to come up with something new that people don't already know. But I managed to do it, and I always do it.
You want to take some phone calls?
Well, I actually have my wife here, and I think...
I'll bring her on.
Okay, well, Beth, pick up the phone.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Beth. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. To you, too.
What'd you think of the weekend?
I love it. I just love being around so many people like that. And we don't get to be around a lot of people. We live on top of a mountain, pretty isolated.
Well, you got to see me introduce David all weekend long, and you were sitting in the front row. How does that make you feel when you see your husband walk out on stage and you're listening to the audience like that?
Really proud. I love it.
Yeah. And he said that you laid out his clothes.
Of course. You saw his outfits the last, few years.
Yeah. Well, what was funny is I was looking at some of the posts. Yes, Rita, phone calls. If you can post that up on Twitter for me. 323. I need to use this phone line, everybody. 323-275-9695. That is the phone bank that is open. 323-275-9695. Back to this. I was watching some of the posts because I popped up a picture of David in his tux, and he looked all serious and good. And it really surprised me how people noticed, what, man, no sandals? No shorts?
I remember one contact in the desert, he wore a shirt, and it literally had like a big rip in the back where you could see in and everything. And I mean, I don't really mind it, but I like him in tuxes and nice suits. I think he looks really handsome, and so
yeah,
being dressed like that.
There you go. Don't be so excited, Beth. Perk up. Yeah, it was an exhausting weekend, but that expo, that conference, what makes it special for you? Because I mean, I know what it does for me. I like the openness and the awakening, and how everybody has just this amazing open attitude. What makes Conscious Life Expo so special for you?
Well, I like to see a lot of my friends. I know a lot of people here, and I get to see people I don't see for years at a time. And I get to see David shine. I don't get to see him do that much. Just a couple times a year, see him on stage.
Right.
Sounds like he got a phone call, and it's really beautiful because he's brilliant on stage, and he really shines there, and a part of him comes out that you don't see that often. And I always learn something new because we don't talk about that kind of stuff usually.
Right. Well, I've got time for one phone call before we hit the break here. So hang on. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Okay, nobody is there. Okay, pull David back on the phone, Beth, so I can say goodnight.
Yeah, we're both here, yeah.
Okay, all right. Happy Valentine's Day to the both of you, and it was great seeing you this weekend. And this year, the expo for us was it just seemed like it was a positive vibe, and it was exceptional. And that's the way that I came through it. And you guys were